Hello, hi, welcome. I'm super excited today to be here with Ryan Stewart. Ryan is a digital marketer. He's been in the industry over 8 years. He is the founder of the Florida-based WEBRIS. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You got it.
WEBRIS, love it. The agency is actually focused on building brands through organic traffic. Ryan is highly experienced in SEO, user experience, and multi-channel marketing. And he was also named one of Moz's 215 People of the Year. Big, awesome, congrats. So Ryan, welcome. I'm super excited for everything that you have to share with us today regarding scaling and growing your agency.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Are we ready for me to take it away? Is everyone ready?
We are. Let's do it. And
Okay.
just a reminder to everyone listening and watching along, please submit your questions in the chat. When Ryan is done with this presentation, we'll start asking them.
Yeah, for sure. So just for context, everyone here, this deck is actually ripped directly from our private coaching consulting program that we work directly with agencies on. So it's pretty long. I'm going to kind of feel out based on the comments here. I'd like to make this a little bit more interactive just in terms of the places where you'd want me to expand a little bit more on. So I will be continuously asking you all for feedback. So keep your fingers ready so I can make sure to tailor this to the best of everyone in the audience, because there's quite a few people here and I want to make sure that everything that I'm doing here is directed towards you all. And then I want to get through this as quickly as possible, as Shelly said, so I can open it up for Q&A and really help all of you understand how you can take this information, because this is all framework based, and apply it specifically to your agency. So over the last 10 to 12 years, aside from growing my own agencies, I've worked one-on-one with agency owners of all sizes. And this work, and through these detailed one-on-one conversations that I've had time and time again, it's led me to build out this very simple 3-part framework that I've used, again, to not only build and scale and grow my own agencies, but also to impart this knowledge on our agency clients to help them unclog any roadblocks that they might have. And the key word here is simple. I think when it comes to us as marketers, as an industry, as a personality type, we tend to overcomplicate things. I don't know if that's just the nature of marketing, because there's so many different things going on. But what I really want you to walk away with here is, if you're an agency and you're feeling stuck, if you're stagnated, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like there's just not enough time in the day and you're constantly working, you can't get yourself out, I want to impart something on you about simplicity, in that the solution to your problem is going to be less and not by doing more. It's not going to come from implementing a massive amount of new stuff. It's not going to come from trying to, be like Gary Vee and get on your camera and get on every single social network possible. You don't need a million different service offerings. I work with a lot of companies that are doing 10 million or more off one offer. I work with a lot of companies that are doing 10 million or more off of one single traffic source. And that's, again, what I really want you to walk away from here is simplifying things and stripping things down. It's kind of a cliche, but I actually moved into a new house 6 months ago, and we had this big old tree in our front yard, and we wanted to get it taken out. But when the landscaper came by, he said, "No, this is a beautiful tree. You just sometimes got to cut back the branches in order for things to grow." And it's the same thing with your business and your agency. Sometimes we have to go through and cut things back and take a step back, seemingly, in order to take leaps and bounds forward. So what I want to start with is just presenting to you this framework, and more specifically is helping you understand that these map specifically 2 different stages in an agency. And what I hope too is that you've never really seen this type of framework before, because I'm constantly trying to work against the grain, but always as well, just taking what works, again, from growing our own agencies as well as growing our clients' businesses when it comes to the agency. So first and foremost, if you are doing less than $20,000 a month in revenue, the key to getting to the next scale is all about position, right? What specific pain point are you solving for a specific type of client? What is your main offer to the market? And this is really like an epidemic when it comes to especially SEO agencies, which is really what I specialize in, is we always push our services first, right? I do SEO, we do website design, we can do Facebook ads, we do all this stuff because we're marketers. But what we're not doing is we're not speaking specifically to a specific type of client. And more importantly, we're not focused on solving a specific pain point for a specific type of client. I promise you, 80% of the agencies that come to us that want to partner with us tell us that they think they have a lead generation problem. But when we go back and we review their business, it's not a lead generation problem. It's a positioning problem. It's their inability to carve out a specific part of the market, a specific type of client, and solving a specific type of problem for them. If you can do that, if you can refocus your agency on solving a specific type of problem for a specific type of a client, I promise you will get to 20 grand a month in just a few months' time. Especially now post-COVID, agencies are in demand more than ever because every business is online. But if you are not focused on solving problems, if you're focused on selling services as opposed to solving problems, you're going to get stuck. And that's a large reason why a lot of agencies get stuck right here in this band. Next up is going to be process. So another big pain point that agencies come to us with all the time is they can't pull themselves out of their service, right? Agency owners still doing work, still doing sales. That's a process problem. So after you kind of push past and understand who it is that you're servicing and what problems that you're solving for them, it's then about putting together what we like to call a productized service. So a simple, scalable, repeatable solution or offer that is geared towards delivering that desired result for who your target avatar is here, right? So again, I talked about this briefly in the beginning here, but we partner with plenty of agencies that are doing 10 million or more a year and scaling towards 20, 30, 40, 50 off of doing one single thing, right? Just doing SEO, just doing link building, just doing content marketing, just doing analytics, right? And what they've been able to do though, is they've been able to build very detailed and specific processes that have allowed them to not only pull themselves out, but bring in more people and train those people very simply and easily and standardize their hiring roles and standardize their salary bands and actually build an ecosystem around the service. Again, that service is all geared towards solving that specific pain point for a specific type of client. So after you get through the positioning, working on your process and productizing your service into something, again, that's not somebody coming to you and just being like, hey, you do websites, let me get a website. You're like, I don't really do websites, so but we'll do a website. That breaks your process. It breaks your position. And what ends up happening is you end up chasing the carrot. And I use this analogy all the time. I came from the corporate world in my first job. And what I realized very early on is that they continuously dangle the carrot in front of you in terms of salary. I'll be here for 2 years and then you'll get the promotion, then you'll get the raise. We often chase the same things within our business, right? Like, I need the money, so I'm going to take this money. Or the client wants to pay me more to do Facebook ads, so I'm going to do that. But what it ends up doing is it ends up costing you money. It costs you time. It costs you headaches. You're forced to break your process and you're actually taking a step backwards. So that's part 2 of this framework. Is all about process. And finally, it's all about demand. So this is really for what we like to call scaling agencies, right? It's really the ability to communicate your ability to solve a problem for your specific type of prospects. And this is just marketing. We call it demand generation, but it's really marketing and then sales. And then ultimately what underlies all of this is people. If you haven't figured it out yet, your business is going to scale through people. You are only going to be as good as the people that you bring in. And if you can knock these things off, what it's going to do is it's going to make the people process a lot easier, because people is really where agencies also get stuck. You get to a point where you realize it's almost kind of overwhelming in a sense when you get to a point as an agency where you realize that you can only take on as many clients as the people that you have to service. And that's really where you also want to go back to this framework. You want to revisit your position. You want to make sure that you're solving that specific pain point. You want to dial in your processes, which will allow you to scale your services on less time, also charge more for it too, depending on the size of the problem that you're solving, and then take that and then build demand off the back of that. So you're attracting the right type of clients that are geared towards this process, and things run a lot more smoothly, and then ultimately having people oversee this entire process, and again, growing and scaling through people. Does that make sense so far? Everyone good? I see a bunch of questions coming in, Shelly. How do you want to handle this? Should we wait? Should we dive in?
Yeah. Either way, if you feel comfortable, we can just save them to the end and just go question crazy.
Cool. Okay. Why don't we wait? Let me just kind of go through a little bit more of this framework. And then we can start taking questions. Again, I hate to be like just up here talking to people. I love to make this a little bit more interactive. But that's the framework in a nutshell. Again, it's the simplicity here is, again, what's super key. And I really do hope that you'll think about where your agency is in regards to these pay bands and the specific types of problems that you're having. And you'll see that this framework is actually pretty spot on. 10 years in the making right here. So this is a very, I hate this picture, but this picture really helps to drive home the point that I like to make with the slide. And this is where I get to talk about myself, one of my favorite things to do. So I've been in this industry for almost 12 years. I got my start doing very big corporate consulting with Accenture and Deloitte and like the analytics and process design space. After that, kind of cut my teeth on realizing that, again, the corporate life wasn't really for me. So I started looking at ways to make money online, and I ended up stumbling across SEO. Through that, started building my own websites, my own blogs, just became obsessed with learning more about it. Got to the point where I was good enough to eventually take on some clients. I had a couple of failed agency ventures like everyone along the way, but eventually I got one that stuck with, which was WEBRIS. This was back in 2015. Grew that very, very quickly, ended up starting the agency. And this is actually an awkward picture of me being applauded agency that acquired my agency. Spent 2 years with that company on the executive board. And after that, we decided we're going to untangle it. And now I got the rights back to run WEBRIS. So that's the brand that you see up there right now. So I spend my time really split between 3 companies. WEBRIS, number one. That's our customer facing agency. We do a specific type of SEO for B2B clients. I'm going to talk more about that as we go through this. That's company number one. Company number two, is the Blueprint Training. That's where we partner with agencies to help them implement this framework. And then also we've got a lot of really amazing training that really helps to really productize and processize SEO as a service, if you will. And the third company is called Coding is for Losers. And what we do there is we also partner with agencies and we help them build out things like custom dashboards, custom tools. And we do that through the Google Suite and through a platform called Google BigQuery. So the majority of this will be focused on the Blueprint Training and kind of our teaching and coaching there, because from what I understand, this is pretty much all agency people. So that's myself in a nutshell. I had to cover that just to make sure that, the person up here talking to you is qualified to do so. So what I want to kind of dive into real quick is I want to dive into these kind of 3 pillars and just kind of walk you through very, very quickly at a very high level. And I'm going to move quick just as a warning, because again, I do want to save time for questions here, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it a little bit more detail. So again, pillar number 1, from 0 to 20K, this is all about, I said position, I call it positioning, right? And this is uniquely qualifying your agency's value in your market. So just real quick, the benefits of positioning here. What I really like to say positioning does is it reduces friction in your business. It helps you stand out because you clearly define who you are and the value you offer to clients. It helps you establish authority. You can quickly become the go-to source for the market. This is a huge problem that you see a lot too, right? Is that a lot of companies, agencies specifically, they'll start doing content marketing. They're talking all about SEO and Facebook ads. It's super saturated. You got companies like SEMrush, Ahrefs, Moz. Let's be real, people. We'll never outrank them. We'll never have more authority than them on those types of topics. So when you position yourself properly, and for context too, you can use the word like niching down in exchange for positioning. I don't really like the term niching down because I think it actually cheapens the whole conversation about positioning. But the point is that when you do go into your niche, you can exploit that much quicker and become the go-to source of information for that market. I use the example here of Kindlepreneur. He's a friend of mine. His name's Dave Chesson. He started a blog a couple of years ago, all about how to rank books in the Amazon store. The blog was called Kindlepreneur. Because of how much authority he was able to build around himself and that blog, he then launched a piece of software that does keyword research for it. I think they're doing $4 million a year now in year 2. He's well on his way, and it's all off the back of that positioning and really exploiting the knowledge that he knew. And that's just kind of an example of how you can do it and do it very quickly, as opposed to just kind of going very general. It makes acquisition a lot easier. So like I said, people come to us thinking they have a lead problem when it's really a positioning problem. When you are only servicing one type of client, when you're only solving one type of problem, when you only have one offer geared towards those people, and then you build the case studies and track record of you solving those problems, that's when things get lethal. That's when things start to snowball. That's when you start to have that hockey stick growth. And again, I know the hard part here is kind of making the mental decision to select a position. This is one of the things that we work on, kind of breaking in these limiting beliefs with our agency partners, because a lot of people feel like they're cutting off revenue, they're cutting off leads, and they're actually going to hurt their business. But in reality, like I said, it's just like trimming a tree. Sometimes you have to take a step back to take a leap forward. And that's part of this process. And trust me when I tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. If you're on the fence about niching down or selecting a position, it's the right decision as an agency, especially if you're doing less than $1 million in revenue a year. Like, you have to have a specific position. Otherwise, you're just not going to get the traction that you need. It makes operations much easier. I used to be a Six Sigma consultant. For those of you who don't know, it's basically kind of the process in the manufacturing world of looking at deficiencies in manufacturing processes and then reducing those. So I look at kind of this as a quasi Six Sigma on a much simpler scale, just meaning that, again, when you're servicing one type of client, you're able to build one process to service that client. And then once you have that process, what you're able to do is you're able to manage that process as opposed to trying to manage everything. And that'll make more sense as we go through this in showing you how effective a single process can be to manage a $10 million plus business. It makes hiring a lot easier, reduces the amount of roles, highly specialized workforce, much easier to find, much easier to train. You're not hiring somebody, like a lot of agencies will be like, damn, I think I need a project manager, or I think I need like a specialist here, a marketing specialist. But no, when you have, again, one type of customer, one type of solution, you're able to standardize everything within the business. And I call this the PIF factor 2, which is the pain in the ass factor. It reduces the pain in the ass factor. And when you're focused on solving that one problem for one type of client, you get a lot more clarity in your business. And this is the beginning conversation of you being able to truly pull yourself out of the business and we'll focus on what I call big rocks. So that's the benefits of positioning. This is just a slide on kind of beating back the objections about it not being the right choice. I won't spend too much time on this here. Kind of what I just said, that, you know, I've been doing this a while, and to keep things short here, trust me that this is the right decision, especially if you're doing less than $1 million a year in revenue. So I want to talk quickly about the different positioning strategies. So these are 4 ways that we coach our clients on positioning. So this is why I said I don't like to call it selecting a niche, because when you call it selecting a niche, you just automatically go to thinking about like, I'm going to work with a gym or something like that. That's really just cutting off the legs of the strategy. It's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. So the first one that I like to push on people is the industry positioning strategy. So only going B2B, only working with SaaS companies, e-commerce, local companies, etc. A good example of this is Inflow. They're an SEO and CRO agency. They only do e-commerce. They've actually got a great about page. On their about page, I'll probably butcher the quote, but it says something along the lines of, you want to work with us because we only work with one type of client. We live, breathe, and sleep e-commerce. You know, and that as a value and a selling proposition is very strong. But again, also as an attraction mechanism, as a process mechanism, they're able to, I mean, they're crushing it. I don't know what the revenue is, but they do very, very well. Our agency, WEBRIS, also, we only work with B2B clients. And the reason behind that too, we won't get so much into how to select the positioning strategies. If you guys are interested in that, definitely check out the blueprint.training. We've got a lot more information up there, and we can actually help walk you through the exact kind of process. We've got a bunch of workbooks that are really effective. We just don't have time to go into them here. But essentially, one of the reasons why we landed on B2B is because our 3 companies, WEBRIS, Coding Solutions, and Blueprint, are all B2B. I am spending every single waking hour of my life working on B2B marketing, not just marketing too, but growing B2B companies. And that's part of this too, is understanding that it's not just about the service that we do for them. There's also other business models in terms of, you know, offering training, offering coaching, offering consulting to help support that. And I'll talk more about that in a second. But we came up with that because we're nonstop focused on growing B2B companies. We have so much knowledge on it. I don't do any e-commerce. So why would we offer that to clients? Why not just completely position ourselves and offer the most value, not just from a marketing point of view, but now when we have conversations with our clients, we're able to talk about sales. We're able to talk about dashboards. We're able to talk about KPIs because we're living and breathing this every single day. So just kind of getting your brain thinking about how you can start to position yourself. Number 2 is what I call the niche industry. So this would be your more traditional, I call it like the Facebook group strategy. Nothing wrong with Facebook groups. We got a couple of Facebook groups, but often, you know, they're pushing some low-level strategies there. This would be one of them. It's right. It's not wrong. It's just, again, when you look at it without full context, then you can get pushed in the wrong direction. I don't want you making decisions based on without having the full picture. So things like this would be working with coffee shops, CrossFit gyms, lawyers, home supply stores. Good example, this is rankings.io. They only work with PI attorneys. They're actually a client of ours at the Blueprint. I'll talk a little bit more about them in a second when I give some more examples of these, but that would be your niche industry targeting. Specialized service is another good one. So this would be kind of focusing on a subset of a service. So like content marketing, link building, international SEO, mobile SEO. Good one here is Marie Haynes Consulting. I should reach out. If anyone knows her, I've reached out to her a few times for a quote. She ignores my email. So if anyone wants to ping her. But anyways, no, she does great work. I love her. And what she's done a very good job of is building her business around algorithm recovery, right? So she's got like an algorithm analysis podcast. She's got like an algorithm analysis blog. She's got an algorithm analysis tripwire product, which we'll talk more about as well. That helps to bring people in, sells them in, and then ultimately probably sells them on a long-term retainer. A really good one to look at is Marie Haynes Consulting. And then finally, this is really where I see a lot of the market going, is what I call a productized service. So our agency, as I said, WEBRIS, we only work with B2B clients. We only do SEO. We're actually starting to tack on some more, which I'll talk about, but we offer what are called sprints. So we looked at the market and we said, everyone is selling long-term retainers, especially during COVID. Who the hell wants to pay for a 12-month retainer when they don't even know if they're going to be in business in 12 months? So what we did, and I'll talk more about this too, and I'll show you how the economics break out, is we shortened that down into SEO and what we call sprints. So tackling the 3 pillars of SEO campaigns, the strategy, the keywords and on-page or content, and then the links. We offer those in sprints. They're 3 to 4 weeks max. And again, I'll walk through a little bit more about that. But the only reason why we're able to do that is because it's heavily productized. Productized meaning part 2 of this, we're talking about processes. We have processes, detailed processes for everything. We have templates. We've got an overarching framework. Everything within that is clearly laid out. So we're able to, again, offer it and run it very quickly without having to do a ton of like off the shelf kind of custom work, if you will. It's not the type of work we enjoy doing. And if you're doing custom work, then you better be charging 10x what you'd be charging for a normal campaign. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out economically. Another one is a tripwire product. So this is what I just referred to with Marie Haynes a little bit. So we've actually developed something that we call the website quality audit. It's available in the Blueprint training. What it does is it pulls in data via API, via Google Sheets into 6 sources, SEMrush being one of them. Pulls in data from 6 different sources, and then we just use a bunch of different scripts to aggregate it. And what it gives us is what would normally take probably 10 hours of data aggregation work, we're able to do with a few clicks of a button. So what we're able to do is we're able to sell that audit at a very low cost comparative to the market. So we're able to get people in what we call this tripwire product. It's kind of an old school internet marketing term. Basically means get somebody in with a productized offer that you can run scalably and repeatably that has value to the market that you can then charge for. So we're basically not having to do proposals in some cases, and we're getting paid to do that proposal and discovery work for $500 to $1,000. Then of course the output is what? A whole bunch of issues, a whole bunch of strategies that they can then implement. Oh, by the way, we do these. Let's talk about extending this into a longer term contract. So that's another really good tactic. The other one that I was talking about too is DWI stands for done with you, as opposed to DFY, with this done for you. So another thing that we work on very heavily with our agency clients in the Blueprint is understanding the relationship between completely done for you services and consulting and done with you, and then also training. Because what I see happening a lot in the market is, and why a lot of agencies get stuck, is because they've been doing like local SEO for coffee shops. That's their specialty for the past decade. And they can't figure out why they're not growing. And it's because the economics of the business don't necessarily work out. Because when you have somebody like a coffee shop who doesn't have anybody internally necessarily to help out, they need you to do everything for them, but they're capped at how much they can pay. And even if you're bringing them in more customers, you're not going to be able to charge them much more variably. It's just kind of the nature of that type of niche, right? So another option, as opposed to doing everything, is doing with them. And this is, again, is the exact business model that we use at the Blueprint training, which is we're going to help you implement all these strategies, but we're not going to do them for you. And it's a mix of a few very short training videos to give them context, right? And then working sessions via Zoom to actually talk through these things. So we do this a lot with Facebook ads. We run almost $100,000, a month of Facebook ads traffic for our businesses. We're very good at it. People come to us all the time to do them for them, but I don't know how to make that model work. There's way too much work when it comes to content. And I'm going to walk you through that too as we get through this. There's so much work when it comes to content that it's difficult for an agency to do that without charging like 50 grand a month. So instead, what we've done is we've said, okay, if you want to make this work, you could either pay us 15 grand a month to run these ads for you, or we can go out and help you hire somebody internally to run your ads and be your kind of internal marketing person. And then we will work with them to understand exactly what our framework and system is. So we're going to work through them in getting this implemented for you. It's not only going to save you money, but you're bringing this equity in-house internally. It's a very, very, very impactful business model. You have to understand, again, this is why it's part of the positioning conversation, because if you don't understand who's on the other side of that conversation, if you don't understand what your market position is, if you don't understand who your target customer is intimately, and that means what's the revenue, what are their pain points, where do they need to go, who do they have to help them out, and you build your offer based on that, not again based on, hey, we do SEO. This is all that we do, or we can do all these things. So we're going to do, whatever it is that you tell us that we need. No, it's the opposite. You are the expert. We need to position you as the expert. You are the authority. They are coming to you and you are telling them. You are telling them what they need, and you are telling them what you're going to do. It's not the other way around. They don't get to select. If you come to us, we're not a McDonald's menu. You can't pick off what you want. We have one offer for you, and that's what you're getting. If it doesn't fit, then we'll refer you somewhere else. But that's all you're getting. We don't break our process. We don't break our position for anybody. And it's why we're able to scale with so little friction. And I'm able to take half my day in the middle of a workday to do webinars and not have to worry about what's going on in the business because we have it taken care of. So these are just some more kind of other things that I really want to impart with you. Again, we have a saying internally at the Blueprint, we like to be a small hinge that swings a large door. These are the small hinges that can have a massive impact on your business, right? So these are the positioning strategies. A good example of this too is Case Study Buddy, a friend of mine, Joel Klecki, really, really great B2B copywriter. He's got an amazing productized service. Basically what they do is they help B2B companies create case studies, and they do it for you. So it's a really good example of a productized service where that's all they do, and they're very hyper-specific focused on who they do. So just for more context here too, this is where this really starts to get surgical, right? So these are the 4 things that I discussed, the 4 positioning strategies. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, meaning it doesn't have to be just one or the other. If you look deeper, and if you're really understanding what your market is, then the true value comes in combining these. So some examples of this. Another friend of mine, his name's Alaric Heck. You've probably seen his ads all over YouTube. He's doing a little over $1 million a month with his company Ad Outreach. And all they do is they coach people on YouTube ads. And he's selected niche industry because they do coaches and consultants is who they, and info products is who they specialize in. And he's got a productized service. So he's built this amazing business that is focused, it's streamlined. They know exactly who they're talking to. They know exactly what problems that they're solving. And he's been able to scale this very heavily, again, by following this very similar framework. Positioning, he's got a process in terms of productized service, and then his marketing and advertising is just off the charts. I'm sure you've seen his ads before. Again, $10 million business that has one single offer, one single traffic source, and a very, very simple service offering. But it's highly, highly impactful. It's also a specialized service, if you will. Another one, again, this is rankings.io. The founder, Chris Dreyer, is another personal friend of mine. They only work with PI attorneys. Again, not even just attorneys, just personal injury attorneys. And that's important because he understands the difference between PI attorneys and other types of attorneys, right? They're different. Attorneys are not attorneys. We actually don't work with attorneys because for a lot of reasons, but they're usually not a good fit in terms of our personality and our service and them. So Chris really, really intimately understands who they are as a people, what they want, and what they care about. And everything in his business is geared towards servicing them. That's the other big part of this. So they're a niche industry, again, only working with PI attorneys in their specialized service because they only do SEO. And now actually they're starting to tack on pay-per-click. So when we go back to this model too, the beginning three kind of squares that I showed you, if you're doing more than $500,000 a month, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, the framework still applies to you. So what Chris is doing now is he's going back to the beginning. He's going back to his position. He's revisiting his position. He's now asking what else they offer because they're now doing $10 million a year in revenue. And he's now tacking on other stuff. So this is a really key distinction. So many agencies get stuck at like 20 grand a month and they're like, damn, well, I know how to do Facebook ads. So let me do Facebook ads. Like, no, it's not a good idea. There's so much more that you can squeeze out of what you're already doing. And adding on another service is basically like building another business. Chris is in a position where he has the cash flow, he has the people, he has the team, he's got the clients that he can already just upsell to. He can basically double his revenue by just offering them pay-per-click, but he's at that point because he's pretty much scraped the entire national market for PI attorneys. And now he can offer another offer on top of that. So if you're thinking about adding another service and you're doing less than $500,000 a month, I wouldn't do it. There's plenty more that you can squeeze out, assuming that your position and your offer is on point. Siege Media is another really great one. Another friend of mine runs the company's name's Ross Hudgens. They're at 80 employees via Austin and San Diego. They have a specialized service. They also have now kind of scaled up because they're, I think, plus $10 million a year also in revenue. But basically what they did is when they looked at the market and they looked at the type of companies that, really needed what the problem was, which was when it comes to SEO specifically, there's different types of SEO, right? There's companies that need technical SEO, like massive e-commerce companies. And then there's more of like the B2B companies that need more content and just link building. More specifically, when they looked at the market, they said, okay, there's a lot of B2B companies out there that need our services, but like we can't just create content because they have no authority. And we don't just want to hit them with crappy links by buying like PBNs or guest post links. We need to build actual authority. So they built their offer around that problem. What their offer really is, at the core of it, is the content that they create, and then they build like massive, like, I don't want to say like infographics, but like chunky research pieces of content. And then they do outreach off the back of it. So like PR style outreach. And what they do here is they build you content, but they also build authority. So they've solved a massive problem in the market for a lot of those B2B companies that are kind of stuck and aren't getting the results from traditional SEO because it's the wrong approach. So they built their offer specifically for that, and they are crushing it because of it. Final one here, my agency, WEBRIS. Again, we are focused on the industry of B2B, and we have a productized service, which is SEO Sprints. I'm going to kind of walk through that a little bit more. Is everyone good on that? Cool.
Yeah, we actually have a bunch of questions coming in. Why don't we go ahead and jump into a few of them, and then we can move forward.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so Craig Mullins actually asked, so where do you go about finding your clients, and what are keyword modifiers that are best for finding clients for pay-per-click campaigns? So little different there.
Sure. So Craig, right? Correct?
Craig, yep.
Craig, respectfully, Craig, I think you're asking the wrong question, right? Again, this kind of goes back to this. This is the traditional marketing approach. I know how to do paid search, so I'm going to jam paid search down people's throats. It goes back to, who are you targeting? Like, who is your customer? And is paid search a good option to reach them, right? So for me, I know intimately who my customer is when it comes to the blueprint agencies. And again, I kind of have my marketing framework in this. We're not going to get to it. So we'll just kind of stick to the positioning and offer design because it's probably the most impactful for this audience anyways. But essentially, Craig, I know intimately who my customer is. I know intimately what they care about. I know intimately where they hang out. And everything that I do is geared towards, again, solving their problems, communicating that I can solve their problems, and then getting that information and content in front of them. So for us, we use a lot of Facebook advertising because marketers are all over Facebook. Whether they want to admit it or not, they're hanging out all day on Facebook. So we're able to pluck a lot of our customers directly from there. When it comes more to WEBRIS, we've done some like targeted guest posting to get on some like the big kind of like B2B blogs, but again, also Facebook ads is just really effective there as well. So that's a very specific question, Craig. I don't do paid search anyways. I have a full-time media buyer in-house that handles that for us. We don't run any paid search for our companies. We do more and more YouTube ads because they're becoming more and more effective for us. But again, it's not about the traffic source. It's not about what we know how to do. It's about them. Right? When we're servicing customers, it's 100% always about them. It has nothing to do with us. We need to react to what they care about and to what they need. And that's why this is so important and so impactful, because again, so many of us marketers, either, we got trained by a company or we got trained by training. We saw something on Facebook about like SEO and we're like, I do SEO. That's what I do. That's what I know how to do. But if you're not mapping that to the person who actually needs it, then your business is never getting past a certain point. And it's another big reason why so many agencies get stuck, because we need to adapt to them. It's 100% about them. So Craig, I know that wasn't the answer that you're looking for, but that is the best answer for that question, in my opinion, for the context of this webinar.
Right. I agree too. So Costas actually had a really good question. So once you've discovered your positioning, how do you leverage your positioning to generate leads? What do we do to take our positioning and get potential clients to build our prospective pipeline? So you kind of touched on this, but
yeah, let's blow it out though. So the next big part of this, I'll touch on it very quickly, is building an offer. This is again something that especially folks in the SEO space, unless you've done like info product marketing before, then like offer design is something that usually falls on deaf ears. They think, a lot of times when I bring this up to people, think about like spammy info marketers, but I'm like those spammy info marketers, their product may suck, but they're really good at marketing and they understand offer design and they understand how to attract you. So part of that process is building your offer. So I won't go through it like really quickly here. But it like this directly ties into the marketing strategy, which is really all about understanding basically at a very simple level. So this is the offer that we built for the Blueprint training. So real quick, cost is just for context here. So the Blueprint training, what we do is we service SEO agencies. We help them scale past, a couple $1 million in revenue. So we always start with a pain point, right? So the pain point for them is, how do I get to 6-figure months, right? That's the majority of what our agency customers have. They want to have 6-figure months, 7-figure years. So at a very simple level, what are the roadblocks that they're having and how do we help them get to a happy client? For us, it was all about picking a niche, productizing a service, and then generating steady leads. If you look back at our original framework, this is literally our framework, right? Positioning and offer design, service productization, and then demand generation or marketing. So the reason I'm showing you this now is because now I want to kind of push you into the marketing stuff a little bit more. We can always come back to this offer stuff in the future. This is all service productization. Go back to this in the future. So Costas, what it really comes down to is this: when you have the positioning done, when you've got your offer built out, it's just about communicating that back to the market, which is marketing, right? And it's almost ironic too, because I always get a good laugh out of this joke when I get it. But like, we're all marketers, but we all suck at marketing our agencies, right? It's not our fault. It's mainly just because we don't have the time. Clients are very demanding, etc. But essentially, all we really need to do is we need to create content that resonates with our prospect, more importantly, with their pain points, and then promote that content where they're hanging out. So I'm not going to go into the content model here too much, but I really just wanted to show you real quick is basically kind of how we take this and turn this into content topics. So this is the exact same offer that I just showed you, right? Positioning, productization, marketing. And what we do here is, this has always been a pet peeve too, and I know SEMrush is a keyword research tool, so I won't bash keyword research too much, but keyword research has its place, but it has its place at the bottom, meaning we don't use keyword research to identify what we want to talk about for people. Because why? Because keyword research is only for search engine marketing. It's not for Facebook marketing. It's not for social marketing. It's not for email marketing. It's a specific output for blog content to get it to rank in organic search. Too many times we as marketers think keyword research is how we want to build our brand's content strategy. It's not. So don't use keywords for content ideas. Instead, what we'd like to take is more of the jobs to be done framework, which directly pulls from our offer, meaning what problems are we solving? So what we've come up with is a very simple kind of like 5 type of pieces of content that we want to create. And then I'll show you how we spin this through. So number one is literally just how do we solve our client's problem? And we call this a micro conversion. So if you look at our website, webris.org or the blueprint.training, we've got a big button in the top level navigation that says framework. That's we call that a micro conversion. And all we're doing there is we're telling you exactly how, like this deck is actually pulled from a micro conversion, because I know if I can get you to watch 30 minutes of this deck, that you're pretty much going to become a customer, right? So we want to create that piece of content. We call that like our front end marketing offer, or a micro conversion, right? You literally just, whatever your offer is, whatever service you're offering, show people exactly what it is in a deck. Just present it to them. It's like a timeshare, right? After that, we want to just get into how to solve the roadblocks that our clients are having. So like some social proof, case studies. Then we can get into some useful templates that you have. This is just a piece of value. Client case studies again, more social proof, and then high level, like interesting style roundup. So where I'm going with this is, let's just take this and push this onto the blueprint again. So how to solve our client's problem. This is the micro conversion. So we built a webinar. It's how to go from 50K to 100K with our framework. Pretty straightforward. Then we go into how to solve the roadblocks of the client. So should you select a niche for agency? How productizing our agency triple leads, the best agency lead generation tactic in 2021. So you can see where I'm going with this, right? I'm just using our offer here to just build our content out. And this is all based on the problems that I know that they're having. The keyword research comes after the back of this. So for example, if I'm going to create a blog off this, then I would do keyword research to support this topic, not the other way around, right? We never want to create stuff that's not ultimately driving towards what problems that we're solving for our customers. Otherwise, we're wasting time and we're creating content just for the sake of creating content. So Costas, where you're eventually going with this too is, again, so what I like to do is kind of take this, and I'm going to show you the next slide, which can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's super, super impactful and important. So again, this is kind of the offer design framework, the 3 pillars that we're helping solve. We literally take these and we turn these into what we call like the pillars for the brand, right? So I think HubSpot calls them like pillars, clusters, whatever. Everyone's got their own model. So these 3 pillars here are the core of the blueprint training. This is all that we'll ever talk about. This is all that we'll ever create. If it doesn't map to one of these 3 things, we don't want to have anything to do with it. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of our energy. And what this allows us to do then too, I call this like the HubSpot if had a baby with Gary Vee model, because I think both their models are a little bit dated and they need a little bit of updating, especially with how fast the internet's moving. So essentially, when we look at the topic of the pillar of positioning, right, Costas? So for example, we can create a blog post, the complete guide to positioning, right? That's one. Then off the back of that too, we can create a multiple different kind of the hubs or spokes, if you will, off the back of that are all related to positioning in the complete guide to positioning. 10 reasons why your agency needs to niche down. How to craft an offer, right, to get more clients. And then this is like a case study example, how, XYZ agency grew 150% by repositioning their agency. So you can see how we're then taking this, and this can be blown out into infinity here, right? And this would be all just written blog content. Off the back of that too, we can also create video, right? So we can do a long form video. And what I do is I'll create a video and then have a blog written off the back of it. So I'll create a video, complete guide to positioning. This now is a whole nother distribution channel, right? We can put it on Facebook, we can put it on YouTube, we can put it on LinkedIn. And then we can do the same thing here. We can do videos for all these blog posts that we have here. Off the back of that too, then we can get into how do we distribute this on social media. So like as opposed to two, and this is where the Gary Vee model fails, is that Gary Vee will be like, come up with one like video and then cut it up into a million pieces and put captions on it because people will care about it. No, they won't, because platforms have their own specific way of communicating. So like when you go on Twitter, it's not, if you want to tweet out a link, people aren't going to click on it. It's not on Twitter. But if you come up with like what we call like a tweet storm, right? Like 10 tweets that literally just talk about what that guide to positioning is all about, or like 10 reasons why you need to niche down. Each tweet can be one of those. This is a very key concept here that so many marketers fail at understanding, is that they think it's all about getting people to their website when it's really about consumption. People are so busy. There's a million things going on. The goal is not traffic. The goal is not leads. The goal with content is consumption. How can we get people to consume this where they're comfortable doing it? And how can we get them to do that in the most effect? If you can do that, just like you're watching this webinar, if I never told you what my website is here, if what I'm saying resonates with you and you're paying attention, then you're going to seek me out. You're going to find me, period. That's just the way it is, right? So don't get lost in that. We want to focus more on consumption. Same thing with LinkedIn, right? Like taking that story and putting on LinkedIn in a long form copy, as opposed to just posting the link, right? And then another just outlet could be a podcast. So you could do like a complete guide podcast, and then you could do positioning interviews. So you can start to see how this can fragment out a little bit, right? And where I'm going with this, Costas, too, is once we have this kind of content model figured out, then it's just about promoting it. Really, I have a very simple framework to do so. Owned, earned, and paid, right? Owned is going to be your social platforms. A community, this is important, like having some form of community, whether it's a Facebook group, a Slack group, or an email list. Again, somewhere that you just kind of own that customer information. That's not necessarily sales. They're kind of in between marketing and sales. Having some sort of community. Earned, this is where search comes into play. Search is really the only earned channel that you need to attack as an agency. So mentions would just be links. So basically just like creating blog content for search for earned. And then the final is paid, again, Facebook ads. So depending on who your customer is, that could be YouTube ads. It could be, paid search ads, whatever it is. But like these are the three kind of pillars that you want to look at in terms of where to then take this content once it's done. So that was kind of a very long-winded answer, us, but it also helped me to push through more of this deck. So let me know if that helped, or if you want me to expand on that a little bit, because I kind of pushed it in a different direction just so I could push through some of this deck. Shelly, if we have more questions, we can take some more.
Absolutely. We did actually have a good one that would be good for you to touch on. Chris O'Neill, he asked, what is your process? So what happens when a client comes to you and it's not a good fit for what their ask is? What do you do? How do you handle that?
Sure. Yeah, we refer them out. We'll tell and this is part of it too. This is why, I was saying that you need to look at all three of these things in terms of positioning, productization, and marketing, because what you want to get to, like where we're at now, is we're running so much traffic, we're getting so many leads that we're our sales team is like happy to turn away leads because they don't want to waste any time. And that's kind of where you need to also prepare yourself mentally that you need to get to, right? Getting out of the scarcity and getting more into the abundance where you just have so many leads that, that's obviously the end goal and the vision, but that's where we're at now. And it's not an overnight process. It took us a long time to get there to where we're at, but we just turn them away. We'll basically just tell them, hey, and even before we have a call with them, we don't want to waste any time. Like, hey, I took a look at your questionnaire, and we've got a whole process for this too, in terms of like structuring our websites, in terms of the questions that we ask, in terms of how we qualify, in terms of how we do our sales process, all this stuff. But at a very high level, if they don't fit what we're looking for, then we say no, or we'll say, hey, look, if you're looking for Facebook ads, I'll send them to a referral partner that then pays me cash for any time somebody closes. So it's like, especially when you're younger, if you don't want to turn away leads and you really want to look for like strategic referral partners, right? Somebody who doesn't do what you do, and you don't do what they do. So that way you can pass people back and forth in good faith. That's what I would suggest. The other thing too, and I think this is really, really important for people who are, beginning. This is what I coach all of my agency clients on that are in the beginning stages, is that you need to understand what your personal economics are. Meaning, how much money do you need per month to live, to take care of your family, to pay everything, and then reverse engineer how much your business needs to make for that, right? Because also that's another thing. If you're still treating your business like your personal bank account, stop that now. You need to have your personal finances in your business, and whatever finance you're taking from your business, like you're probably gonna need to 4x that to take care of taxes, to take care of margins, overhead, all that stuff, right? So once you get to that point with your business, this is why understanding your personal finances, like if you need $5,000 a month to live, to take care of everything, and then you reverse engineer that, okay, my business has to make $15,000 a month to do that. Take on all the clients, whatever you can, to get to $15,000 a month. And then once you get to that point, draw a line in the sand and don't take anyone that doesn't meet your criteria from there. Because then what that allows you to do is allows you to make educated, informed decisions. It gives you the cash flow is oxygen, as they say, right? It gives you the ability to breathe, and it gives you the ability to make decisions not being constrained by cash. And I promise you, if you can do that and get to that point and start there, right? Like again, I don't tell people to turn away clients per se if you need the money, but that's why you have to know your numbers, you have to know your figures, you have to know where you stand, and then kind of reverse engineer from there. And then like once you're at that point, if you only want to work with e-commerce clients and you get like a local coffee shop, even if they want to pay you, $2,000 a month, then you can pass that to somebody else and just take 20% cut off that, whatever that is. And then you're getting money for doing nothing. And again, the more leads that you generate, the more you can refer out, the better that it will end up fitting for you.
Right. Great insight. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Of course.
So I would be curious. So you can reach that point, you're ready to scale. How do you go about finding people so you can remove yourself from the business, that you could trust?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very good question. And that is developing yourself into a leader. I actually believe that has nothing to do with the people on the other end. It has everything to do with you as a business owner, as a leader. You need to own all the responsibility for everything. This is epidemic, if you will, in terms of American culture, in terms of people not taking responsibility for their own actions. It's a culture thing that for whatever reason is being pushed on us at a very young age. But I think there's a book called like Radical Candor and like Radical Responsibility or something along those lines, where like everything that happens in your business is your responsibility. And it's your fault. If somebody comes in and they fail, it's your fault. And I go through this all the time. It actually drives me crazy when an agency owner is like, this person sucked, they're not the right person. I'm like, no, that has nothing to do with them. You're not working with them the right way. Like if you're not spending the time, as a coach to people all the time, like once you start taking on people and hiring them, they don't owe you anything. They're getting paid to be there. That's their responsibility. You actually owe them. You owe them your time. You owe them your training. You owe them processes. So first of all, first and foremost, Shelly, just to answer the question, because I got off tangent there. You need to have processes. If you're bringing on somebody and you don't have a clearly defined role, you don't have clearly defined processes for them. And again, they don't have to be set in stone. A process is meant to be built on. Like we have so for example, we're hiring a new SEO strategist at our agency. We have more than job description. We have kind of like their day-to-day activities, like the processes that they'll be involved in, the people that they'll be involved in, expectations. We've got training for them. They're coming into an ecosystem where we're prepared for them, right? And where people fail, they'll be like, oh, I need like this person's overworked, so I'm gonna go hire this. And then like you just bring somebody in and then you blame them for when they fail, right? So you not only need to have the structure and the framework and the process to bring these people in, but you also need to have the culture, right? You need to have the culture of learning. You need to have the culture of like the open door policy. I spend more than half my time talking one-on-one with team members. I have 25 employees and I talk to every single one of them every single week, but multiple times. I talk to my sales team 3 times a week for both companies, give them an hour, half of my time. Literally, like I work for them. That's one of the first things I tell people, like, thank you for coming here. Like from this point out, I work for you. Whatever it is that you need, I am here at your service, and everyone else on leadership as well. So if you're having trouble hiring people, like people are people, man, you know, especially of how much on the job training is, like they're going to have to learn most of it. Like they might know Facebook ads, they might know SEO, but they don't know how you do it. So there's a certain level of training and commitment that you have to give back to them. Now, if they're still not succeeding in your system, then you just need to set boundaries, right? You need to set goals. You need to be clear with your expectations. We work on something called the 30, 60, 90-day plan, where at the end of the first 90 days, every 30 days, we have clear-cut goals and expectations for where they need to be. And if they're not working out, then we'll just let them go. You know, we're very open and honest about that, you know, while I'm here to work for you, if you're not giving it back to us, then we're going to go somewhere else with somebody else. Especially if you're a small company, you just can't afford to have you know, poor performance. But it all starts with you. So if you don't have all those boxes checked when you're bringing people on, it's not their fault. It's yours. So and it doesn't matter where you hire from. If it's LinkedIn, Upwork, you know, we hire actually directly out of our Slack community, which is amazing because they go through the blueprint training and when they're trained on our systems, then we'll hire them into our agency. So we've got a very good kind of like system for hiring people. But even with that, you know, it's a lot of work hiring somebody, and you owe them your time, your attention, all the above to get them to where they need to be.
Great point. Fantastic. So you did get a couple questions about how specific of a niche you should get. Krishna actually asked, is just SEO auditing niche enough, or should it be more specific, for instance, for SaaS or e-commerce?
Yeah. So what you're thinking of is basically that's more of kind of like your service offer as opposed to what the market needs, right? Who needs that audit, right? So if you've got a really, really good kind of like templated audit, if you will, or I should say proprietary audit, something that you specifically do well, like for us, it's our website quality audit. It's still not enough to be like, hey, we have a SEO audit. It's still too generic, right? So you really want to hyper focus that on more of who needs it, right? So again, it's much more. It's always about people. Like, who's the person that needs that? Who's the company that needs that? Who's the industry that needs it? And then going from there.
So Sage Digital actually asks, when you do niche marketing work, how do you solve for your customers' weak branding, poor identity, lack of message, etc.? This slows us down more than anything else.
So 2 things. Number 1, don't work with them. If you know that ahead of time, that's your fault for working with them. It's not theirs. And then number 2 is that, or 3 things. Number 1, don't work with them. Turn them away. They're not qualified to work with you. You basically just said all the things that you need and they don't have. That's number 1. Number 2 is help them build it, right? So either do it for them, or this is where a done with you model comes into play, right? And this is super important. I'm glad you asked that question because again, as agencies, we can't do everything. We just can't without them paying us a ridiculous amount of money, which they're never going to do. And in order for us, so when we go back, let me go back to this like offer design slide. So when we go back to this chart here, right, when we're coming up with like what these 3 things are that we need to take them from pain point to happy client, that should be incorporated in there. So for example, when you're working with a specific type of client, I don't know, let's call it a local gym, right? And their pain point is, you know, like customers in the door, whatever. Like, what are the things in a perfect world that you need to do in order to get them to happy client? Maybe it's like rebuilding them a website. And it's like, well, they don't have a website, their branding sucks and all that. Well, you need to figure that out. If you want to take them on as a client and get them to here, that's your responsibility, right? It's not theirs, because they're hiring you because they don't know how to get to here. That's why you exist. That's why we have jobs. That's why we get paid what we do. So if you need to be able to take them here, then you need to be able to impact that. But looking at how to impact that doesn't always mean that you have to do it for them, right? So, for example, again, when we look at these three things here with our, this is basically the blueprints kind of offer. We don't do any of these things for them. We give you a set of videos and then we talk you through the process. But again, for who we're working with, agencies who are already doing that, you're already doing this work on a daily basis. So we're able to come in and just have conversations and impact your business. It doesn't work like that for a gym because they might not have the people over there. So again, it's either your positioning is off, your offer is off, just a whole bunch of things where you can kind of go back to this very, very simple framework and understand like, oh, okay, this is why my business isn't working, because what I'm offering doesn't actually help them. It's what I think helps them, but I've never gone through the exercise of actually putting this into practice. And you're seeing it happen in your business every day. These micro signs of clients are unqualified, they're too much work, they're not paying us enough. It's your fault. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. I don't mean that to be an ass. I just mean that like it's your fault. It's not their fault. Like they're signing up because they want more customers. And then you're coming on afterwards and be like, your branding sucks, and be like, why didn't you tell me that ahead of time? Like you looked at my website, you knew my branding sucks. So why didn't you tell me that ahead of time? So, and this goes back to stop taking on clients that you shouldn't take on, either that or figure out a way that you can actually impact that. And it doesn't have to mean you build them a website, right? Maybe you throw a ClickFunnels page. I don't know, whatever it is, but that's what you need to figure out. That's why this very simple framework is super impactful when you actually apply it and abide by it.
Right. I'm telling you, I'm eating all this up because as 12 years, I was basically independent, running my own small little, consultancy. So it speaks volumes to me. So someone actually asked, I believe it was Sam, he asked, does the same set of pillars apply to the early stage of an agency? Maybe if you're like 0 to 10 clients just starting out.
Hold on real quick, Shelly, because I saw a question here from Adriana. She said, are you guys aware that Ryan Stewart is actively affiliating himself with a sex offender? I'll say this. The person who you're talking about, this is important. I just want to say this because this isn't the first time this has come up on my presentation. He doesn't work for my company. I can't control who comments on our posts, who's involved and whatever. That's all I'm going to say about that, Adriana. So like, I don't know why you feel the need to come in here, gossip about stuff that you have no idea what you're talking about. Just don't do that in the future. It's skeevy. Just don't do it. Anyway, sorry, continue, Shelly.
No, I'm glad you clarified that.
It's stupid, man. Like for like 12 years old, get out of here, dude. He doesn't work for me. I don't want to tell you. Like, what's your background, Adriana? I can't control what you're doing. You're in here commenting. It's the same thing with him. Like, go kick rocks. Get out of here. Continue. Sorry, Shelly.
So Sam asked about the same set of pillars apply when you're just starting your agency.
Could you pull the question up? Sorry.
Oh, sure. Katie? Or maybe let me see. There it is.
Yes, it does. So Sam, sorry. These pillars here specifically, this is for my business. What you'll need to do is you'll need to go through what these pillars are. So for context, let me just pull it up because we didn't actually get to talk about it. And I think offer design is probably one of the more impactful things that we can help you out with off the back of the positioning stuff. Just ties in. So basically what you're looking at here again is we always start with what the pain point is of what your position is, right? Who is your target customer? What's their pain point? Just write it in here. From there, we just need to come up with 3 to 5 roadblocks for what's standing in their way from getting them from having that pain point to them being happy in terms of solving that pain point. So what you'll need to do is we'll need to go through and just kind of map out what these very simple things are. Again, so if we're looking at, I think I had one in here for my agency as well. If we're looking at, this is, again, doing it for the blueprint training. This is how do we help agencies get to a 6-figure month? It's by simply going through these things here. So you'll need to take this kind of same model and apply it to whatever, position that you're servicing in the market.
Right. Fantastic. We had, let's see. So someone actually asked, they were a digital marketing expert, asked, what do you think about lead generation for, say, high ticket clients?
I love it. It's what I do every day. That's actually what we primarily focus on at our agency. So WEBRIS is B2B now, but we're moving very rapidly into, I'm hesitant using the term high ticket because high ticket kind of attracts a little bit more of like an info marketer space,
Right.
which we actually work with. I'm an info marketer myself. I'm proud of it. But we work a lot with high ticket clients. And it's actually ironically the easiest to do because when you have that much room for in terms of acquiring a customer, you're able to do a lot of things in terms of advertising, in terms of content, in terms of investing in different marketing initiatives. It's actually much easier to attract. For example, we work with Chris over at rankings.io, whose customers are worth upwards of like $500,000 to $1 million a year. It's actually much easier to attract those customers, as hard as it may think, because of the amount of capital that you can spend in order to attract them. Versus if you're selling like, I don't know, like metal straws, for a dollar a piece, you're very limited in what you can do. You've got to take much more of almost a viral approach.
Your margins are slimmer for sure.
It's tough. It's really tough to do. Or you acquire them at a loss and then optimize the LTV of that customer. So I love high ticket marketing. I actually think it's much more suited to this type of system too. Again, this is much more of this system that we're talking about here too. This would not apply to an e-commerce company. This is built specifically for agencies. So it can be applied to B2B. It can be applied to high ticket, if you will. But I wouldn't take this and try and use it for like an e-commerce product. It's just not going to work. This is definitely specifically for agencies, but really anyone who's in kind of a similar market in terms of the lead generation and the value of what those leads are to our businesses.
Right. I like that. So actually Elizabeth had a good question. So her typical customer is very much like the small coffee shop. Her specialty is launching businesses, doing the branding, web and social, but it's not as lucrative of a niche as business to business. How should I go about changing that positioning?
That's a good question, Elizabeth. How dead set are you on continuously working with them? This is one of those, and this is, it's a very tough conversation to have, I think, because I don't want to tell you that it can't work because there's plenty of businesses out there that work specifically with that type of customer. It's not something that I do or recommend just because of the friction that you're already experiencing. Like, we can't fight economics, right? And that's the challenge too, is that one of the beautiful things about working with agencies or working with, is that we can continuously raise our price based on the impact that we're having, right? And that's a beautiful thing about this model too, is that it's almost kind of weird when you're doing everything for a client, especially a client that needs you to do everything, a gym, a coffee shop, because they don't have the resource. It's not their fault. They don't have the budget. They don't have the resource. They don't have the team. You're stuck doing everything for them, but they can only afford to pay so much. And that amount that they can afford to pay, even if you're driving a ton of value to them, you're probably not going to be able to raise your price that much over time. So in order for you to make that model work, what you have to do is you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I love working with coffee shops because it's what I've always done. I'm passionate about it. I love helping local small businesses. I love that too. But what you have to do is you have to strip down your service. You can only do one very specific thing. And what that one very specific thing is going to have to be the most impactful thing for that business, right? So, if you're doing SEO for them, is SEO really the best way to grow a coffee shop? And this is where this exact model comes into play, right? If we're saying that the biggest pain point of a coffee shop is I can't get people into my location, but you're doing SEO for them, is that really what's best for them? The answer is probably not, right? So what you want to do is you want to go back to this model here and figure out what is the most impactful thing that you can do for them and how much can you charge them for that. I've got a whole bunch of other videos too on like pricing design based on offers and stuff like that. That's not tied to hourly rates. Ours is always going to be part of the conversation as an agency, because whenever we're working with and through people, we have to track their hours. We just have to, right? Because it's like, again, if you're selling straws and you're not tracking how much it costs you to make the straws. So we're not doing that because that's how we price. We're doing that from a kind of an agency management point of view. But after that, you really need to dig back in here and figure out, like, how do we strip this thing down to drive the most impact? And then again, I've got a lot of content also on kind of like process design and how to strip it down, going through and being like, do we need to do a competitive analysis? This is taking 5 hours of my time, but it's not driving any clients for them. It's good information, but do they need it? No, probably not, right? So just going through and kind of stripping those things down and then building this into a very streamlined process, again, that you're just running over and over again. And this is where I think kind of the advertising model works a little bit better. I mean, SEO is great too, because it's essentially a checklist, but if you're only running Facebook ads for coffee shops, you've got the templates done. You've got the copy done ahead of time. You know what type of images convert. You're walking in here ahead of time, which drastically allows you to reduce your input in terms of your effort, raise your margin while while still driving the impact. That's really the only way that you can make that model work. And then you've also got to get a lot of those clients in order to make money off it. So you've got to really be good at client acquisition off the back of that too, either asking for referrals from coffee shops or taking what you're doing in terms of case studies and then putting them on Facebook as ads and being like, hey, coffee shops, see how I did this for this company? I can do the same for you, period. You know?
That could be a very valuable exercise to go through and do, for sure. Let me see. So Elizabeth also asked, she asked if she could target startups with venture capital. She has one in her book right now. So that seems like a potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't feel this question looking for an answer. I mean, I'll say yes to everything, you know. If you go through this and you vet it, and again, just kind of a plug for our like coaching consulting program. This is what we work one-on-one with you on. If you're really struggling with these types of things and you've been stuck here for a while, like absolutely go to the blueprint.training, book a strategy call, and we'll talk about it. We can definitely help you do this. I can't answer it for you off of that.
Absolutely. I think we're freezing up there. We're going to have these slides. This video will be available on YouTube. So we'll be able to rewatch. Ryan, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, perfect. Okay. We froze just a little bit. Fantastic slides and deck presentation. I have to say, I've actually used, you have some really great free resources at the Blueprint training. I've used a couple of them and they're very handy. So I absolutely recommend anyone who's watching to go and check it out and look at your resources. I believe you had an Excel, like some really great Excel and Google Sheet docs that were.
Yeah, a ton of stuff for sure.
So thank you.
Anytime. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Shelly.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.